Let's get the show right on the road. Ben Smithy is the Chief Strategist at Relevance and the Chief Advisor and Co-founder of Spike, helping companies better relate to young consumers. From the beginning, Ben recognized the opportunity for brands to leverage technology like social media, mobile phones, to better understand consumers' wants and needs. Since launching Spike, Ben has become well-known throughout the leader, both inside and out of the industry, having presented at nearly every major industry-related conference around the world. Ben's passion for people and insatiable curiosity drives him to lead by example, pushing the world of research outside of its comfort zone. Outside of research, though, Ben is a sports enthusiast, loves food, consumer of red wine and scotch. He's on TV, The Weekend Insider, where he helps bring TV audiences in Texas the latest in events, openings, fashion, and lifestyle news. And ladies, he was voted the top 10 most eligible bachelors of Dallas recently. Please welcome Ben Smithy to the stage, our keynote speaker this morning.
Thanks, Dave. All right. Is everybody awake? That doesn't sound like it. Has everybody had at least one cup of coffee so far? Yes, all right. This is the audience participation part of the program, so you're doing marginal right now, and I hope you're going to catch up. Can we get the slides going? Rockin'. So over the next few minutes, I am going to talk to you a little bit about what we're calling the Millennial Movement, how to craft movements and how that's going to affect sort of the retail future of the industry. As Dave mentioned, my name's Ben Smithy. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at a company called Relevance. And previously, in my prior life, I have a consultancy that worked with a lot in the industry in terms of retailers, manufacturers, designers, on sort of the future trends and the millennial segment of the industry. So what I'm going to be talking about today is kind of what is shaping this, where are we going, and what that means to all of you sitting in the room. So today we are featuring and sort of focusing on this sort of new breed of consumer, right? We call them the millennials. Everyone in here knows one, has one, or hates one. You know, the sort of paradigm and the nomenclature that people use for millennials, this 18 to 35 segment, if you will, the stereotypes range from empowered or entitled, or we sit around the table texting each other. And I do say we because I'm guilty as charged. I'm part of the segment. But it's interesting because as millennials, this new consumer is greatly, greatly impacting all of you sitting in this room. We kind of were born and embedded with this technological mindset in everything that we do. From the cars we drive, from the music we consume. I know everybody in the room has probably seen one of those cute little videos of a baby playing around with an iPad, and it just seems natural, right? They don't even know what to do with paper anymore. They're sitting around expecting everything to touch and move and animate and swipe left and right and up and down. And then we encourage that even more as we get older with things like Tinder and Match.com. There you go. Some people are awake. Some people have a glass of coffee. My goal is to increase the laughability one by one, two by two. So within that technological mindset, it's impacting everything that we do, the cars we buy, the clothes we buy, the music we listen to, the places where we go to shop, and most importantly, the future of retail experiences that we expect from brands. So today, when you look at it, the other thing that we have when we talk about the millennials is this urge and this desire for greater impact. It's not just about a brand, but what does that brand mean to millennials? What does it represent? Because when millennials take on a brand and embrace a brand, they want to know what it says about them. That's why you see all the companies like Warby Parker and Tom's Shoes and other movements that we'll talk about today, like the Ice Bucket Challenge and Kickstarter and Indiegogo, things like that. That sort of greater impact, that greater good. Because it's not just what does the brand say, but what does that brand say about me as a consumer when I buy it, wear it, shop for it, and tell my friends about it on Facebook and Twitter. Additionally, and everybody knows this, we are the connected generation. We're the connected consumers. Everybody in this room probably sleeps with their cell phone, at least in the same room with them at night. Most of them, if I asked by a show of hands, would probably say sleep with it within 10 feet of your bed. And an embarrassingly large percentage of you would keep your hands raised if I asked you if you slept with it in the bed with you at night, most nights of the week. Am I right? So for me, the connected consumer is creating this thing in creating community, right? one of the ways in which we connect with each other is sort of this notion of the shared economy. When you do things like Kickstarter, Uber, Surfair, Airbnb, HomeAway, half of these groups and half of these communities are leaders in their field without owning any specific assets. If you look at Uber, it's one of the largest transportation economies in the world right now, and it owns 0 cars. You look at HomeAway and Airbnb, it's one of the largest travel economies in the world right now, and it owns 0 real estate. That shared economy movement that we're looking at is sort of scary for a lot of retailers, a lot of traditional players in the spaces, because it's changing the game completely and flipping the paradigm on its head. If I asked you a year ago, 2 years ago, especially 3 to 5 years ago, if you would ever have homeowners letting complete strangers stay in their house and have full access to their house, if you would have people that own vacation homes on the lake, vacation homes in the mountains, opening their doors and letting people stay with them or without them, you would have said, I'm freaking crazy. If you would have said that people walked around New York City without their hand raised to get a taxi and just ordered cars on their phone, you would have said, that's insane. It's so easy just to walk outside and hail a taxi in New York. But we all know those times have changed, and it's just the first person to create that movement, and then other people follow. And we're going to talk about what creates that in a minute. The next thing that's creating this communal aspect in this connected consumer is obviously technology. Everybody in here has probably heard of this notion called IoT, the Internet of Things. I call it the Internet of Everything because it truly is the beginning of a connected lifestyle. We chip our pets with pet chips, but we also chip ourselves with our mobile phones, wearables. I would say probably at least 50 to 60% of you in here have some sort of wearable device, whether it's a Fitbit, whether it's a Jawbone, whether it's a Nike Fuel Band, or some other accoutrement that we're starting to see in the jewelry industry. I think this is one of the greatest areas of opportunity, not an area of threat for the jewelry industry. When you look at what and the easy target is Apple Watch. When you look at what people are doing with Apple Watch, I don't see it as a competitor. I see it as the first time that we see people standing in line for a piece of jewelry around the corner from a retail store and selling out millions of dollars worth of jewelry before it even hits the market. So it's opening a whole new array and a whole new look and a whole new facet of what jewelry represents to a consumer. It's also innately ugly when it comes to technology. When you look at technology outside of what Apple's doing, technology is greatly ugly. When you look at Fitbit, when you look at Jawbone, when you look at Fuel Band, nobody in here wants to put on their evening, attire, go out to a nice event, and have their Fitbit showing. That's why you see brands like Tory Burch. You see people capitalizing on making technology a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think that's an opportunity for everybody in the room to say, what is our area of expansion in the future? And I think technology and the way technology is going to merge with wearability and jewelry is here to stay. You look at the way it's impacting our lifestyle from the connected consumer. It's impacting every aspect, from our cars to our homes. There's a cool video of a robot that's about to launch called Jibo, J-I-B-O, and you can look it up on YouTube later. They just received another $25 million round of funding, and it's going to be one of the first impactful sort of in-home robots that's equipped with wearables, it's equipped with motion sensing technology. It's quite remarkable once you get over the holy crap, this is really freaky factor. The other thing is this notion of accessible luxury. Maybe I need another glass of coffee. Accessible luxury. Luxury, as we know it, is never going to change in terms of what it represents, in terms of desirability, in terms of scarcity, in terms of access, and most importantly, in terms of experience. The desire for that hasn't changed with the millennial segment, but how we're accessing it has changed completely. When you look at things, again, like Uber, when you look at what Surfair is doing with private aviation, it's changing the way that we as Gen Yers are looking at acquiring luxury. It's also coming into what we're calling not just the shared economy, but sort of this unbundled rental economy. We're not necessarily just purchasing experiences, but we're purchasing shared experiences with our friends, and we're renting those experiences, everything from Ferraris to houses to jewelry to fashion wear. You look at Rent the Runway and what Jennifer's done with that. Nobody can deny the impact that they had. Again, one of those things, if I told you 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you would have told me I'm crazy that women would want to rent their evening wear rent designer clothes that somebody else has worn and give it back. And now all of a sudden they're playing in the accessories business. You look at some of their biggest growing areas is in the accessories business. So what does that mean for those of you in the room? It's super impactful to see how consumers are thinking about the consumer economy in the future. The next thing, if we can get this to go, can someone in the back go to the next slide for me? Thank you. So this sort of on-demand and unbundled notion of technology, of consumerism, of everything that represents Gen Y is here to stay. You look at HBO as the first one from the media standpoint to unbundle and go straight to the consumer, saying, listen, half of the reason why millennials, anyone ages 18 to 35, are purchasing cable and subscription television right now is because of HBO. Why are we carrying the weight? Why don't we go direct to consumer? You look at Netflix creating original content. You look at all of these people unbundling and creating an area of opportunity for every person that sells, markets, or advertises anything to go straight to consumers. This is from everything from media to music. You look at what Jay-Z did with his latest album and went straight to the mobile phone as the platform to release it. He didn't even go through traditional things like record stores or Best Buy to sell CDs. He skipped over the non-traditional sort of avant-garde areas of going straight through iTunes or Spotify or anything like that. Thank you. He went straight to the mobile phone and said, anybody that owns a Samsung or a Droid device can download my album a week early for free and get you behind that velvet rope. That's that new definition of luxury, that experience of being able to share something with my friends that nobody else can do. And because of this sort of on-demand economy, we want it right now. We want to be able to do it without having to buy into a bunch of other crap that we don't want, but we want to be able to create the experiences that we want to have for ourselves. The other thing is impact. So what impact does this have on the consumer mindset? What is all of the stuff that we just talked about in terms of the millennial sort of segment and our consumer behaviors, what impact does that have for us as a consumer segment? The first thing is attention, right? The price of attention has become the most expensive asset and the most expensive thing to obtain in the world today. And this whole sort of slot machine of social media, right? Since we're in Vegas, that's what it is. You open up your phone, you see the Twitter feed, you see your Facebook feed, just scrolling down the page, and you're scrolling through millions and millions of different little things, waiting for something to stop and grab your attention. My favorite quote around this is that when information is cheap, attention becomes expensive. And we're at a very, very data-rich, information-rich economy. Perhaps the most we have ever seen, and we're quickly approaching, exponentially more data in a day than we see in previous years combined. When you look at the stats of what Google produces in Google searches, YouTube video views, Facebook content searches, it's unparalleled in terms of the ability to gather information for free and download data. What's expensive is the attention that it takes and the attention that it costs to grab people's and consumers' ability to engage with your brand, to monitor what you're doing as a brand, to share it with their friends, and actually buy something. So the price of sales and marketing is increased because marketing is cheap. Putting buzz out there is cheap. What's expensive is creating a movement around that and getting people to actually engage with it. When you look at the modern economy for communication and brands, marketing really just creates buzz. But what we're really going for is creating movements. Experiences create movements. And I'm going to spend the rest of our presentation talking just about that. We're not anymore, as marketers and advertisers, we tend to screw everything up, right? We get something like physical addresses, and what do? We spam the shit out of people, and we send them a direct mail where we don't even want to give people our address. We get email addresses, and we have this great thing called the web, and now all of a sudden we don't even want to open our email because we get so much spam from people. We get mobile phones, and now all of a sudden I'm getting random calls and random text messages from companies I don't even know. So the fact that marketing and advertising exists, all we're doing is creating buzz at this point. That's what happened with social. We have this great ability to engage with people in the social media platform. And what do we do as marketers and advertisers? We spam the heck out of people, and we screw that up too, to where now everybody's trying to filter out what's going on in social. What we haven't done is turn that buzz into some sort of actual movement. And this is where that experience comes into play, because the only way to create a movement, the only way to create a monumental movement around your brand is to create unique experiences. So what is a movement? When I talk about a movement, what the heck am I talking about? Well, a movement could be, in New York, we had Occupy Wall Street. You look at something that comes all the way. This was the city center in Portland, right? When you see millennial movements around something that half of the people don't even know what they're moving about, it's impactful. And what causes that? It could also be 55,000's worth of what we say in Texas, tater salad, potato salad. This is a guy that wanted to raise $10 as a joke on Indiegogo and on Kickstarter to create a batch of potato salad. And he ended up going viral and raising $55,000 and creating this ultimate potato salad party, right? Now he's using that sort of 15 minutes of fame, which now is really like 15 seconds of fame, and in some cases 5 seconds of fame, to leverage it. And now he's getting brand endorsements and creating things and getting jobs in marketing and advertising and creating virality because all of a sudden he's a social media expert. That's a movement. Or it could be $20 million worth of ice water, right? You look at the Ice Bucket Challenge. It'd be hard to find anybody in here that doesn't know or hasn't seen some sort of video from the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, some may argue that, you have the crazy people that are saying, you know what, we shouldn't be wasting all this water on this stuff. And then you have people that don't realize it raised $20 million over the course of about a month or so for a disease and a condition that before that, so many people probably hadn't even heard of, let alone had ever talked about, shared about, or mentioned before. So regardless of the medium or the method of doing it, it created a true movement around something, started with the millennial culture, that spread way outside. Because when we talk about the millennials, everybody in here is some way, shape, or form impacted by the millennial culture. We're the first person, we're the first group in the first consumer segment that's affecting not only downstream to our kids, but affecting back upstream to our parents, to our grandparents. If you think about how much you impacted your parents in the room, how much you impacted their lifestyle, you'd say very little, other than the fact that they couldn't go out as much anymore because they now had a kid. Or maybe they had less money as well. But when you look at how you impacted your children, it was great in terms of the food that they ate, the peanut butter brands that they buy, the clothes that they wear, if they picked up their room or not. But now the millennials coming into play, it's breaking that paradigm. We're not only impacting our children's preferences, but we're getting our parents on Facebook. We're getting our parents on FaceTime. God forbid we're getting our parents on Snapchat and Tinder. But it's happening. It's the first generation that you start seeing the technological adoption curve take off like that exponentially. So just when we look at the millennial consumer, a lot of people talk about their spending impact, their disposable income, their media preferences, but it's much greater than that. When you look at things like the Ice Bucket Challenge, you see that it's impacting generations way older and also way younger. And it's creating movements that spur actual decision-making, actual call to actions, actual actions that result in some sort of monetary transaction. And that's where we all in the room want to get to. But what creates a movement? If you look at this, this is one of my favorite videos to talk about movements. And I'll talk to you while this is going on. This video came out several years ago, but it's still the best example. You see one crazy guy dancing. And in a movement, you always have one outlier. You have one crazy guy that's willing to sort of be brazen and be a maverick and blaze the trail and do something that nobody else is doing and probably nobody would want to do. Then you have guy number two. And guy number two is important because it makes guy number one feel like they're doing something right and friendly. But it's not the most important person. Guy number two is probably the most brave because they want to follow, and they're an early adopter, if you will. But the most important thing you'll see coming up here is person number three. The third person in the movement makes it no longer just a fad or an outlier, but it gives people comfort that this could be something cool that others want to get on board. And you'll see the exponential growth as soon as you see guy number three come into play here. There he is. There's guy number three. And now watch what happens. This is the magic of a movement. You have a brazen maverick. You have a follower that's willing to take the path and trust in that lead. You have a third person that's willing to commit and say, let's make this something. And all of a sudden, you start seeing exponential growth. More people saying, oh, this could be cool. I don't want to get left out. More people saying, okay, there's enough people that I'm not going to get soloed out and look like a complete idiot. More people running and flocking to it now saying, I can't miss out on this trend. I want to be cool too and be an early adopter. Guy in tight jorts. I don't know how he's going to dance in those. Luckily, he's covered up by the other crazy crowd that's coming around. And all of a sudden, it becomes a true movement, right? A movement within a movement. You had thousands of people sitting out on this lawn watching a concert, and then all of a sudden you get one brazen person to say, I want to do something different. I want to stand out from the crowd. I want to create something that's bigger than me. And while he stands alone for a little bit, eventually, if it's a movement that people get behind and you get the right people behind it, it truly becomes something big, and you can see it still growing and growing and growing and growing out of control. And that guy looked like he was just completely in his underwear running because he's so excited he couldn't even, pants will just hold him back. That's the movements that we want to create. Those are the things of exponential impact that should be around your brand, your product, your lifestyle, whatever it may be, your message. And now you can see how crazy it got, and that's probably where security comes along, which we call marketing, and screws everything up and sends everybody back to their home, right? Now there's no room for everybody to move. That's what we call complete saturation, and MySpace dies. But what does that take? It takes two pieces. It takes a catalyst and momentum. That catalyst is somebody to do something different. Somebody to say that the current paradigm is broken. How do we revolutionize something? How do we stand out? Not just to stand out, but to create a path that others can follow, that others can do and join along with, and create bigger, momentous change. Then we look at, what do we create momentum with? How do we take that catalyst, build upon it, and create movement that others can follow? As marketers, we're very, very, very good. As business owners, we're very, very good about coming up with an idea. But in today's economy, ideas are crap. It's all about execution. Everybody has ideas. At the rate of idea exchange, you look at VCs and investors, they won't even sign NDAs when you go to pitch them because they hear 20 of the same ideas every single day. Everybody telling them, I have this brand new idea, something that nobody else is doing. They don't care about that. They care about the execution. That's the momentum piece. Everybody has a catalyst. Everybody has an idea that they want to put into place. But what do you do to create that movement? Especially within the retail sort of environment. When you look at movements and everything that we've talked about so far, momentum really comes along giving people a vehicle to create change. And in today's sort of consumer and connected consumer economy, we've never had the tools like we have today to create that momentum. When you look at a catalyst, like a new idea, a new product, a new service, a new brand, we can get that exposure by paying for it. We can get it for free via social media. And in fact, targeted advertising on social media has never been as successful as it is today. If I ask for a share of hands in terms of however many brands that you either represent, own, or sell for, and let's do that by a show of hands really quick, how many of you have a Facebook page? Your brand that you represent or own, or right? I would say a good over 50% of people in the room, if we take apart the people that are still afraid to go dance with the rest of the crowd, right? Somebody stand up in their underwear and start dancing, and we'll get a whole movement started, and I guarantee you we can get JCK trending on Twitter right now. It's not going to be me. However, if you look at that social ability, everybody in here is doing something. Again, the catalyst is not expensive. The ability to create attention is not expensive. Everybody's playing in that game. Whether it took them 3 years to do it, or whether you're the jeweler that secured the Diamonds Facebook page and now has 1.3 million likes on Facebook because they bought facebook.com/diamonds or secured it back in the day, it doesn't matter. Your ability to capitalize on that is super cheap. Right now, if I told you that you could sit there, go to different pages on Facebook, whether it's competitors, collaborators, partners, people inside the industry, people outside the industry, and see people that have engaged with each different post, commented, liked, or shared, take that information and create targeted advertisements that only get served to those people and convert on the cost of about 2 to 3 cents a click, you would look at me and say, that's way better than anything I'm doing via email. That's way better than anything I'm doing via Google AdSense. That's way better than anything I'm doing via retargeting or remarketing. It's the cheapest form of conversion out there, and it's by far the most targeted. So if I ask people in here how many people are actually not just advertising and boosting posts on Facebook, but truly using that targeting, that number and that percentage of over half the audience would go down dramatically. So creating that catalyst, the ability to turn that actual catalyst into momentum is the price that nobody wants to pay. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about sweat equity. I'm talking about knowledge. I started talking to this industry and other industries back in 2009 about social media. That was one of the very first platforms that I talked about in terms of how Twitter was going to change the game. Because when I started talking about Twitter, brands and people in the room looked at me and they said, Twitter's stupid. It's a fad. Only thing people talk about on Twitter is what they're having for lunch and when they're going to the bathroom. Right? Anybody in that camp? Probably some of you are still in that camp. But the truth is, as a brand, why would you not care what people are having for lunch? Why would you not care what when people are going to the bathroom? Perhaps today might be the cheapest form of getting somebody's attention is while they're in the bathroom on their phones, because everybody's doing it. It's the grossest thing in the world, but it's the cheapest way to get their attention. So that type of information, especially if you're a brand like Frito-Lay or, God forbid, Charmin or Angel Soft, do they care? If you're a brand and you're not leveraging the assets that are available to you, you're never going to create the movements from the catalyst that you're already doing. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. You're able to create small buzz and you're able to look at things like impressions and reach, but you're not converting that into true dollar signs. And as a business guy, I know the importance of that. That's all that matters. We can create and kick up a lot of dust, but what does it matter unless we create movements that turn into monetization for our brands? So what does this mean to the retail space? Arguably, what is the need today from a consumer's mindset for a retail location, a physical retail environment? You're hard-pressed to show me a very specific product or industry that requires a physical retail environment to be successful. We talked about transportation. Uber doesn't even own any cars. You talk about Airbnb, they don't own any homes. You look at Tesla, they have 1.5 cars in their car dealership, right? One of them's chopped in half so you can see the insides. And they're in the mall. If I would have asked you, if you would have ever purchased a car in a shopping center that has one car in its inventory, in one color, in one finish out, with one set of trim, you would have said, why the heck would I do that? We're not in the Henry Ford days, right? But Tesla's doing it. When you look at a car dealership that holds so much inventory typically, and you see somebody flipping it on its head and flipping that paradigm to say we don't even need to carry inventory in our retail space, it's a scary thing. Many of you would have said 5 years ago that people would never buy a diamond online. And I won't embarrass people by making them raise their hands and say who would say that. But it's true. I would say that 90% of you in this room would have said that, because you got to look at it, you got to touch it, you got to feel it. Consumers really want to see and feel the diamond and see it on their hand, right? Half the consumers don't even understand what they're buying. They look at it, but they don't know what they're buying. They're buying based on emotion. They're buying on the experience that your sales team created for them once they stepped in that store. The only need for a retail environment in today's connected consumer economy is to create an experience. I said Tesla, you look at Apple, that's why they crush other people. Apple's even having to rechange and rethink their store designs. And what did they bring in? They bring in the head from Burberry to help create their retail environments. They look at things like, how are we going to create things with $10,000 to $15,000 pieces of merchandise sitting out there and still making it accessible and engaging for our consumers to use? It's also the age of technological integration. If you don't believe me now that you need to integrate technology into your retail experience, you're going to believe me in a year from now, especially a year and a half from now, because the rate of integration of technology into the stores is going to change everybody's retail experience environment. It leverages data, it leverages knowledge about the consumer, and it's going to fundamentally shift and create and really lead the consumer experience in the retail environment. You look at sensors and machine learning, and here's where we'll geek out a little bit, and it gives you something to go sound smart about when you talk to all your friends and family. If you look about iBeacons and you look at different technologies that people are starting to really integrate into the retail environment, it's changing the game. Has everybody heard about like NFC or low energy Bluetooth or beacons? I'm sure there's people here talking about it, and I'm sure there's people here demonstrating it and having it at their booths. But what this is doing, not just in frictionless payments, this is the thing that people probably know it most for, is frictionless payment system, right? So tap to pay, things like that, things that have that near field communication on your phone that when you tap it to another device, it understands it and it creates a transaction. But that's just the beginning. You see it integrated into cool products like the sort of Memento Pearl, I think it's called, that they're integrating low frequency and near field communication inside the Pearl. So when you tap it on the phone, it creates a video message, and you can see the video message that the person that gave you the Pearl has recorded on your phone, and they can change that message. But that's just the start. When you look at the retail environment, you're empowered now with beacons and mobile technology that I can sit there and I can see every piece of merchandise that a consumer or a customer or a potential buyer has engaged with. I can show them custom content right on their phone that tells them about the designer, the manufacturer, where that particular diamond was sourced, the backstory on it, why it is the way it is, why it costs what it costs, how it translates from a rough diamond that's sourced from a mine to being cut and polished to designed and to manufactured into this final piece of jewelry, and how it specifically became product number 00534127 that's put right into this ring that you're about to buy for the person you love most. We've never been able to tell the story and connect the dots like we can today with the digital integration into the retail environment. We can see exactly which display case they're standing in front of. We can see which sales associate they're talking to. Then when they go home, we can follow up with them with the information that they looked at. We can see their path through the store, so we can redesign the store layout for what fits consumers most. We can say, you know what, on Saturdays we need to have our product mix over here versus over here, because people come in and they tend to go through the store on the left and counterclockwise versus clockwise on that day for some reason. We can say, you know what, on Mondays we tend to see a lot of guys coming in after work shopping for bridal. So let's have a specific set of marketing and messages up in the store on our digital displays that focus specifically on the male buyer. You know, on Fridays, we see a lot of women coming to the store for the self-purchaser. Why don't we change our signage and our digital displays to focus on them? And we can use that data and shape that pathway through the store. It's amazing what you can do with the near field communication and sort of low energy Bluetooth and things that are coming about with iBeacons. I think I've geeked out enough. I see enough kind of what the hell is he talking about faces, so we'll move on. The other thing is dynamic pricing. Now, I'm from Texas, and you know how you can tell if somebody's from Texas, right? They'll freaking tell you. Come on, that's some good material right there. So there's this store called Nebraska Furniture Mart, and you haven't Googled it. I suggest that you write it down and you Google it later, because it's one of the people that I think are going to change the game. 4 a.m. every morning, they go through and they look at the market, they see what competitor prices are, it scans the web and it crawls the web for prices, and it goes back and it updates all the digital price tags in the store for all the pieces of furniture, right? So through beacons, through dynamic pricing, it can tell you in real time what's going on. It can tell you for demand. Imagine if you could create real-time dynamic pricing in your store that said, based on your inventory, based on your demand, based on your traffic flow, based on your day of the week, based on the holidays and proximity to another holiday, which products you can price at which price level based on historical data and based on predictive data. Well, the great news is you actually can. So look up Nebraska Furniture. It's a cool case study, and it's something I think they're doing very well with. The next thing is hacking that human data stream. Humans are creating more data than ever, like we showed before. The fact that they're creating wearables, the fact that we're chipped and we're creating more data about ourselves and more data for marketers and advertisers to sort of consume like carnivores is a good thing for business, because it opens up a whole new life cycle. On the research side of things, when I was running Spike, there are consumers that you could have opt into studies where they let you look at everything on their mobile device, everything that they browse for, and keep track of everything that they search for on Google Maps, when they're sending text messages, when they're driving, what they're searching for on Google Maps versus what they're plugging in. It shows you what their daily commute is, all of this information. It shows you the products and the apps that they're using for exchange for some sort of greater brand experience, because they love product X and they want special discounts and special access to sales and new product releases before anybody else. Not for any monetary incentive, but simply for the exchange of access, for a new experience that nobody else can have. If you were able to say to your top 1,000, top 1,500 most loyal customers, if you could access their data on their mobile phone so you can see the things they're searching for, see how they're talking about products, see how their lifestyle is engaging and changing over time, think how much information you could learn from them. All it creates now is a catalyst in order to do so. You have to come up for a reason for why are they going to connect with your brand. That story, that need, that interest, that's the hardest thing that everybody in this room has to deal with. Why me? It's the hardest thing, and it's the worst thing that arguably everybody in the room is dealing with, is saying, what makes me so different? Why am I different from the next guy that's 5 blocks down the road, 5 feet down the road from the mall from me? Whatever it may be, what makes me different? How can I create a story that causes people to want to engage with my brand, download my app, engage with me, and share their data with me? Data is the biggest currency next to attention, if you look at it that way. If you have people's attention and they're willing to give you their data, you can solve all the world's problems, I promise you. And the next thing is you have to embrace disruption. When I talk to groups like this on a regular basis, I get a lot of head nods. I get a lot of hand raises. I get a lot of eyebrows raised. And I get a lot of people saying, yes, I'm all in. Yes, I'm ready to do stuff. Yes, it makes sense. Yes, I want to do something to change the world or change my industry. But when it comes back to the office after you've been inspired for 5 minutes on stage, what do you actually do to change the game? You have to embrace this disruption. Somebody's got to step outside and be the first person dancing in their underwear at the crazy music concert. Otherwise, it doesn't give anybody else a reason to move. And as that whole sort of mantra is, as the tide rises, so do all the boats, it's completely true. But the fact is, it needs somebody to get up and make a change, make a difference, and let other people follow. It takes somebody to invest in that change. It takes somebody to invest in a different movement. And it takes somebody to embrace disruption enough to be so compelled to put themselves out there on a ledge and say, I want to create something that's bigger than me. So what I want to do is, I know we want to make sure that we have time for Q&A and everything like that. I have my contact info on the screen. I'm going to be around all week. But what I want to do is open it up for a few questions from the audience and make sure we have time for that. There's microphones going around. So raise your hand, stand up, start dancing. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, because then no one will ask a question. But until somebody asks at least one question, I'm going to stand up here and shout out random facts about myself until everybody's blue in the face. My middle name is Walt. Oh, look at that. He's one. Everybody give him a round of applause for being the first person to raise his hand and ask a question.
Yeah. Do you want to still ask something, or yeah? Okay.
Right here.
You spoke.
Can we get a little more juice on that one?
Hello, hello, hello.
Just say it loud and I'll repeat it.
Okay. You spoke about targeting, zeroing in on a demographic on Facebook and other social media, and engaging with people who responded on other, let's say, competitors' brand sites, or maybe the manufacturers that you're following. How do you capitalize on that a little bit more in terms of like giving a strategy that, or elaborate on it so we could just kind of wrap our heads around a little bit further?
Yeah, absolutely. So give me your credit card number. And, well, no, I'm just kidding. He said, how do you capitalize on the targeting that we talk about on Facebook and on advertising? And we'll geek out a little bit for you here, and we'll give you some tactics that you can take home right now. So on Facebook, and if you don't understand something I say, write it down and Google it. There's a million YouTube videos on this stuff, right? It's not rocket science, I promise you. So there's a thing called unpublished posts. Half of you probably post content directly to your page that goes out to your fans, and it's probably irrelevant to half of your fans. If you put something out there on bridal or engagement, half of your audience isn't interested in bridal or engagement. They're already married or not interested in being. If you put something out there on gifting for her, half of the guys aren't interested because it's just about them, or half the girls aren't interested because it doesn't follow their sort of style or sensibility, right? So when you create posts right on your timeline, you're basically spamming 50% of your audience and shooting at engaging 50% of the other percent of your audience. And then Facebook is saying, like the great partners that they are, we're going to show it to about 1% of your audience that you've worked so hard building until you pay us money. This is where it costs to play the game. Facebook gave you the platform. Now you got to give them a little bit of money. The most effective targeted advertising, and it's hard for me to find anybody else that can outmarket it, is what's called unpublished posts in Facebook. For slang, it's called Facebook dark posts. You can sit there and create 20 different forms of A/B testing and creative pieces, the pictures that you want to share on your Facebook feed, that go out to a specific targeted audience without ever posting on your personal page, on your company's page. And in that, I can sit there and I can create a demographic and a targeted audience that post only goes out to those people. I can watch the conversion rates. I can A/B test to that same audience a red and versus a blue, 2 different price points, and I can see which ad is trending most and causing me to cost the lowest point of conversion and run that ad and invest more money into it. Then I can go onto Facebook, and with that audience that I've created, from my email list, from my marketing list, from a competitive list, whatever it may be, I can create what's called a lookalike audience. And Facebook will take all of that user profile data from the audience that you selected in that demographic and create a mirror audience that represents other users on Facebook just like them. So I can sit there and A/B test the hell out of my creative, only invest in what works in real time, and target specifically. Nobody can target better than them. Maybe Google, but they don't give you this platform to do it. And serve up specific content, creative content, that will engage with that brand, because I've already seen those users engaging with it on another page, right? It goes off that principle, if you like this, you're probably going to like that. With that, you can drive likes to your page. With that, you can drive engagement with your posts, downloads of your app, sign up for your newsletter, and even calls to action in terms of purchasing products straight from your page. So that's the way I would go in. That's the only way I would spend money on Facebook. If you're sitting there spending money on boosting your posts, you're wasting your money. If you're not spending your money on unpublished posts and targeted advertising, you're not doing it right. Monetize the investment that you have, and you can get it down to 2-3 cents a click if you have your targeting right. You know, I have some friends at my church in Dallas that created a NASCAR fan page. It's called Sports and Goal. And I think they're up to like 250,000 likes, and they're sending, you know, tens of thousands of clicks to their page every single day just based on Facebook advertising. They get it down to 2 to 3 cents a click, right? You could make that up just by serving up Google ads on your website in terms of people clicking that. You know, all those goofy ads from Google and Taboola that everybody says, who the hell clicks on those? Tens of thousands of people click on those, apparently. So does that answer your question? Rockin'. That's worth the price of admission right there.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Andrea.
So you and I had several conversations about values. What are the values that are driving the millennials? Why are they not interested in our type of luxury? Why are we losing market share to technology, experiential dining, adventure travel, and whatnot? Talk about a little bit about the retail experience that could start changing that. What can we do as retailers to really start appealing to a generation that doesn't have the same values, doesn't believe in their parents' recommendations of the jewelry store, where to go buy an engagement ring, or even if they should buy an engagement ring, period?
So the honest to God truth, why they engage with a company like Apple or technology or things like that and not with the jewelry industry as they have before, is that you haven't given them a reason to. It's my father's jewelry store. It's my mother's jewelry store. And you have 1 or 2 off people here or there that will stand up and say, we're doing this, we're doing that. And that's true. But the fact is, you don't have anybody out there creating a reason for them. If I asked you what people are more excited about on Christmas morning, including your wife or your husband, is it getting a piece of jewelry or getting the latest and greatest iPad? It's scary, that answer. But they haven't given people a reason to come into the store. What reason do I have to come into your retail environment? When I look at Apple, it's to get a problem solved. It's to get answers. It's to teach me something. It's classes. There's no reason other than a transactional reason to go into 99.9% of a jewelry retail environment today. I know that if I walk into the store, I'm going to be try to sell something and probably some sort of hard close to get my business. What other reason are you giving them to go in the store? What other ways are you getting in front of them? If you look at marketing and advertising, these new technology companies are great at putting their message in the medium that consumers are following. They were the first people to get on Facebook and Twitter and social media for business and connect with their consumers. You're still hard-pressed to see jewelry companies really, really investing in doing social media in a strategic way. So you have no chance in reaching that audience, let alone converting them into your store, right? So the biggest problem is, first of all, figure out a way to make it fun and relevant to my lifestyle. You can't sell me the same jewelry designs, the same manufactured pieces that I see in every other store, right? And that's the problem. And I understand the retail environment, right? I've worked with some of the biggest retailers out there. So I get that when my friends ask me, why does X, Y, and Z store only carry these designs and not this cool latest and greatest? I tell them that's because that cool latest and greatest designer and manufacturer can't keep up with 1 hour of sales at one store at this environment, let alone 150 of their stores, right? So you have that sort of paradigm where you can't do that, and you can't keep up with the latest and greatest things, but you can keep up with stuff that's relevant. And if it's not relevant, you have to make it relevant. That's where marketing comes in as storytellers. This industry, for as much story, you have more story and story to tell and assets in the story economy than any other industry I've ever spoken to or ever worked with or ever consulted, hands down. You have more asset to telling a story about tradition, elegance, product. The product journey for a diamond and for a finished piece of jewelry is insane, but it's the greatest kept secret because nobody's talking about it. The other thing that's going to push a lot of people here is that somebody's going to have to take the commitment and really push forward on this sort of notion of social good, social economy, ethics, ethical sourcing, all of that. The fact is that a lot of you and most of you are doing it. The industry is doing a great job of it. It's just not doing a great job of speaking about it because nobody wants to speak about the good things that they're doing or talk about a specific line that says it's, it's sourced from this or it's tracked from this or it's produced with all these good intentions because then the consumer questions, what about every other line in my retail store, right? So somebody's going to have to break that paradigm and make it, one, fun for me to come into the store, give me a reason other than to purchase a piece of jewelry and to create a brand, and two, then come back and say, what am I going to do in order to make it relevant to my brand? Engage with me on where I'm at. Stop trying to make them come to you. Go to them. Go to where their eyeballs are. If you're not creating a Snapchat channel, if you're not creating an Instagram channel, if you're not giving the community access to your product to say, here's what we love about it and here's what we want to talk about to our friends, you're missing out on 100% of the opportunity.
I heard you mention newsletter and emails. Would you address that? Because we're also flooded with emails and that constant. How do we make a newsletter or an email interesting?
It has to be.
Or can we?
Sure. I think that you have to find something that's more than, here's my latest and greatest daily update of news that's going on. That works in this environment, right? Everybody likes receiving the JCK updates. Everybody likes seeing the industry news. But for a consumer to a brand, what do you have to show me outside of your products and things that you want me to buy? It's the same thing about coming into the store, right? Tell me something about you. Tell me something that's going to give me knowledge to tell to my friends. The benefit in today's economy of the success metric in today's economy for successful marketing or advertising or communications is not will somebody open it. That's just the tip of the iceberg. When I design messages and when we design messages with our clients, we're not designing for the person that reads it. We're designing for the person to read it and share it with a friend. And if that's not your design, if you're saying what content is there that makes the reader so compelled to share it with a friend, a family member, or a stranger, then you're missing the mark. You don't have the right content in there. So I think it's 100% about content. When you look at newsletters, it's 100% content. Throw something in there about video, but also make it a quick read. Make it something, then you have to be regular with it. You have to let me know and train me to expect it. But then what is in there? What is in there that's going to make me want to read it? And I think if you answer your own question, or ask yourself that same question and answer it, what's in there that's going to want to make me open it, and let alone so valuable to share it with my friend, then I think the problem right there is what content can I share, right? Talk to me about your store. Talk to me about the people in your store. Talk to me about the knowledge and the certifications, and talk to me about the trends and the products and the things that are coming out down the pipeline. Give me, bring in designers to the store and talk to me about when I can see them and talk to those designers in the store. Some of the biggest lines you see at some of the most outdated stores, which you would consider a bookstore today, you see lines out of the store for people lining up to meet and greet with their favorite author, meet and greet with their favorite writer, right? People still want access to the people that design and create the things that they love and they follow. So if you're not bringing in a designer to your store every month, if you're not bringing in content, if you're not doing a workshop, if you're not bringing in a jewelry manufacturer to show them how to design or how to create something of their own, if you're not showing them how a build your own or a customize your own or a made-to-measure type piece is going on in your store, you're missing the boat in terms of what's going to engage them. They don't want to hear just about the sales that are going on in your store that week, right? They can go online and search for that at the time of need. Does that make sense?
Are they as interested in us? Are they as interested in us, the owners and the employees in the store, or the product, or is it a combination of both? And
I think it's a combination of both. It depends also how good you are at telling the story of the owners, as the owners.
We're blowing our own horn, not?
Yeah, but that's what people are afraid of. You know, people are afraid of saying, well, if I talk about myself, I'm just really tooting my own horn. But consumers care about who they're buying their products from. It's the first generation that knows more about a brand than a brand knows about them.
You're right.
Because they seek that information.
And they really are interested in the brand as much as they are interested in some news media, something that
If you
would
give them a
relate to
reason
it.
to be.
Got it.
Probably room for 1 or 2 more questions, depending on how quick they are.
How strong do you feel Google AdWord campaigns are?
Ooh, that's a tricky one because you have to be really targeted with that, right? You have to have something because it's really easy to create something that's generic and try to buy for jewelry or buy for diamonds or engagement. It's going to be so expensive, you're never going to recoup your costs on that, right? You got to go specific, and I think that's why when you look at what you can do with Facebook and targeting on that, once you build a community, you can get a lot more targeted for a lot more cost-effective means of doing that. And I have no sort of reason for saying that other than it being the truth in my opinion. I don't get paid for endorsing Facebook ads or anything like that. I just think it's the most cost-effective. Google ads and stuff, you know, SEO, very few people are going on to search on a generic search term, on a categorical search, before they go to ask a friend or a family or look on social media what people are talking about. When you look at the amount of time you spend searching on Google versus the amount of time you see checking your newsfeed on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it may be, that's where you're really, you know, spending the amount of your time. So if the audience is spending their currency in terms of eyeballs there, that's where I'd be spending my currency first, and then having people find your site. I think today, it's the problem of today's marketing and advertising is not can people find me, right? It's not can people click on my side banner or can people find my site. It's how are people finding it? Why are they coming to my site? And then the better thing is with Google, with Facebook and other social media advertising is you can see why they're coming to your site. Not just did they click on my ad or did they click on my search term. It's I know which piece of content they're engaging with, so I know, therefore, with pretty good certainty why they're coming to my site, so I can design that experience around it. What I think Google Ads and stuff are good for is remarketing and retargeting. Once we know they've been to my site for a specific way, I can then serve them ads for remarketing through Google, and I think that's super effective. Time for one more? I don't know how accurate this clock is for me.
Can you please put your data back up on the screen for just one moment?
Can I put my what?
Data.
Oh,
Your
yeah,
contact
can you
data.
put my, the slides back up? Thank
So I
you.
can snap it.
There you go. So that was an easy question, so we can have time for one more. Any final questions? It's got to be a good one.
Hi, can you give us a suggestion on Facebook as far as the budget and how you feel, I mean, how many times a week we should pay to play?
That's a big question. So it depends on what your marketing budget is, right? I would test it first. And this, hopefully I don't step on a lot of toes on here, but if you're spending money on billboards and you're spending money on direct mail pieces, unless you can show me a serious return on that, take that budget and apply it to Facebook. Take that budget and apply it. I don't ever expect people to take and build an additional budget for things that are out there because I know how a P&L works, right? What I do is I say, let's reallocate the funds that we already have planned for things that aren't working or things that we think can work better and test market on Facebook. If you're not spending a couple grand at least to test market and sort of chum the waters, especially if you don't have a big audience yet, a big community on Facebook, you're not going to see the impact. You have to create enough because you remember, it's sort of exponential growth, right? So if you're not chumming the waters at least a little bit with to see if what's working. You don't have the ability to A/B test 2 different ads to see, is it the ad creative that's not hitting the mark? Is our target marketing, not hitting the mark? Is our audience off? Or is it truly that this isn't working? So you have to look at it and you have to apply. So I always tell my clients, take budget that you're applying X, Y, Z. We can find 3 things that aren't working that we can ask ourselves, why the hell have we been spending money on this for the past 3 years, right? When we see declining returns, and say, let's apply that to something that we know has been working for other people and do that strategically. All right, I think that's it. Guys, thank you so much for your attention and your time today. I hope you learned at least one new thing, and hopefully I see you around this week.